so it's,
Yeah.
so that thing is really unique in that way, right?
So when you say you did that, is it your company is part of the, the
So-
performance team or?
So the structure of that project is that L'Achevant Théâtre, Elise Vignon's company
Mhm.
in France,
Mhm.
created the production Anywhere.
Yeah.
I actually saw it in shot at Louise's festival,
Oh, okay.
and then when the pandemic started, I asked Elise, what would you like? How could we collaborate together in some sort of way? And we came up with this idea together that we would make an American company that would perform her show.
Mhm.
So they fabricated all the puppets and the materials and all the stuff necessary for the show, and then I cast the ensemble, the company, and we sent them to France, and they trained with them, and then they came back and they performed it. This was 2 years ago, and they first did it, and we were hoping to tour it, but because the idea was for Elise was that to get a company that could tour in North America,
Mm.
her work without having to fly a company back and forth like this.
Yeah.
So to reduce carbon footprint.
Yes.
And for me, I was just like, how can I promote
Mhm.
excellent puppetry? How can I also highlight a unique technique of puppetry
Mhm.
and allow it to take root in the United States, like that people know how to do it here,
Mhm.
that people see it and have a first-hand experience with it,
Mhm.
so that it has like how does influence spread? Like we can show excellent work to the audience and they can go, that was great, and be inspired.
Mhm.
But if we can show it to an artist and they can be inspired, then they can make something, and then they will make something because they will have seen these examples of this work. Right?
Mhm.
And so it's just another version, it's an expanded idea of that, it's a much more in-depth idea,
Mhm.
because I'm fundamentally trying to advance the art of puppetry.
Mhm.
That's our mission, how can we advance it? And so there was a lot of interest in that show, people liked the show.
Yeah.
I would say there was a very specific audience loves that show.
Yeah.
It's actually not a show for everybody, so it's not like everyone's gonna love that show.
Yeah.
It's a show of like, so but but to me, it was a moving production. I felt like it was and it was interesting, and it was innovative. It was doing something that I'm not seeing done,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so for that reason, I'm gonna be its advocate.
I think so. Yeah.
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 And it required us to raise a lot of money to make that happen.
Yeah.
The first time we did it, it cost a lot of money. And this next time we've remounted it, and we're taking it to New York and presenting it for 1 month in association with Here Art Center. That's the theater that Basil Twist does his company out of. Do you know Basil Twist?
I think so. Yeah.
So he's like one of our most established puppet designer, director,
Yeah.
performer people.
Yeah.
And so with the hope that it can get momentum to be able to build a tour and play other places.
Yeah.
And we're also, we made an arrangement.
Particularly for that project, right? Or
Yeah, just that show, just that one show to hopefully have some legs. And so we have a booking agent organization that we've also, that's taking that project on. And so we're really trying to, in our system, try to push it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, and there's an idea like, can we take what we do here outside of Chicago? So and also it's a way to have a intercultural dialogue, with and I really love Elise and her work. I'm very inspired by it.
Yeah.
Actually, most of the work I present I really love, but it's only got 5 people in it. It's a pretty small show, you know, so it's got some things that make it financially seems like it could work, you know.
But technically, it's a huge amount of work.
Yeah,
The beast, the ring in the
Yeah.
theater, all the choices of the materials, water in different forms, the fragility. I love the dramaturgical choice of the
Yeah.
materials so much.
Yeah.
And it goes with the man, but he's so fragile in his ego and
Yeah.
stuff, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it works so well.
Did you see it here?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I saw
Oh,
it the
Opening,
other night.
the day after open, right?
And,
Second.
and it's so cold. I
Yeah.
really admire the actress so much. I was like, wow,
Yeah,
she's a
fly.
superwoman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very Europe actually. I think
Very good.
like European.
Oh yeah. Well, it's straight up
Yeah.
French show. It's like
Yes.
nothing up Chicago about it, other than that it's got.
Yeah.
At least she has a new show with ice marionettes, and she has they're human size.
Wow.
And she developed the technology or the ability. She developed the ability to make the the pieces hollow, because anywhere that's a solid block of ice.
Yeah.
And with the show that is called The Waves is the name, lavage in the French. The Waves is the marionettes are hollow, they're older bodies, and there's 6 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
How can so they put the refrigerator things, freezer in the theater in order to keep the puppet there? I think
It's some expanded version of what we're doing, which is we have 2 freezers and, you know.
You put it outside.
yeah, it's the perfect weather for this show.
In Shanghai, yes, you definitely could. So, but Elise is doing all this research with ice. She has another project where audience come, over a period of a week, they do this thing where they come and they cast their feet, and then they make ice feet, and then the ice feet are laid out in a performance, and they melt during the course of the performance. It's a summertime performance they do. It's really
It's so cool.
yeah. She's doing great work. Anyway, so.
Yeah. Do you have?
Oh, well,
So all I've done is talked about what I do.
yes,
Like,
more or less. I feel.
Yeah.
I just jot down some notes there.
Sure.
And about the budget, yes, and because I realized that we are in a very different culture or universe. Like, I mean,
I mean, in Macau, raising fund, it's illegal.
like look at this.
Look at that, yeah.
Look at this.
That
The
is
first day I
crazy.
got this brochure.
I was like counting the zero or something. Is that
Yeah.
somebody donate $20,000 or something? $20,000 as an
Look at this.
individual.
Look at that.
This is
It's a foundation, right? Or
No, that's a person.
as a person.
200,000.
Yeah.
200,000.
Is one
Yeah.
person. How come American would do this?
How there are people who are very affluent. Like her
And
husband is very successful in his business. She's the chairman of our board of directors. You may have met her.
I
already.
saw the name. Yeah. But the point is, like, if you are rich, you can buy a Lamborghini or whatever,
You
right?
can what?
You can buy a Lamborghini or you can buy.
Sure.
Right?
Yes, you can.
But you give them to the puppeteers.
To the festival. Wow.
Well, this is the cult. This is like the cultural philanthropy is fascinating. So philanthropy is
Yes,
the
yes.
gift, right? And let me just say something really brief about it. I'll try to be brief about this thing about it. It originated over 200 years ago in the United States, when in a very interesting period, about 40 or 50 years after the founding of the country, they formally separated the church from the government, which everyone thinks separation of church and state was fundamental to the United States, but actually it wasn't. The priests were being paid by the government up until the 1820s.
Oh.
And so 1830s, and then all of a sudden people are like, we're gonna cut the church out of the budget, out of the government. And people are like, no, we can't do that. Yes, they argue about it you can imagine the arguments.
Yeah.
People are like, the churches are gonna collapse, the society will go to hell and back, it'll just be awful, right? And what ended up happening was they did it, they gradually did it, they weaned them off, and communities said, okay, we will take care of our church here. And all the people in the community started to donate to the church to make the church keep going, right? And own the building, it became a very dynamic thing for empowering for a community,
Yes.
right? And additionally, around the same time, there was the movement for the abolition of slavery. So the same people with the idealism for their church also had the idealism for we should abolish slavery. And so we should organize to do that. So then they started to organize in that way. And that also created this kind of culture of like individuals not, just doing it on their own. And then the third one was this movement to do self-education, the Chautauqua movement is what it's called in the United States, where they would have these workshops, or they would have a lecture, or they would have a class over a period of a week where people would be, and where people could go and learn about a topic or hear, and the Chautauqua movement was again something that was like a kind of a community creating, taking charge of their culture. All these things required individuals to donate money because there wasn't any government support for it. So that's 200 years ago that started, right? And so people supporting what's right in their neighborhood was always existent. So on some level it becomes, no one questions it, no one thinks it's weird, no one doesn't do it. And then so the people who become and then there was a tax code made so that in truth the people who had a lot of money have to give away some money because of the way that, or they will have to pay higher taxes. And so really, if someone has a lot of money, it's just like they got to get rid of it, right? And so on some level they have to. It's very complicated. But they have reason, they're motivated to get rid of it. And so then they are in a circle of people who have a lot of money, and so everyone starts to adopt their own. I give money to the Red Cross. I give money to the church. I give money to this university. I give money to the campaign. I give money to this arts. Everyone has their thing, and so they are like, oh, we're having an event. Can you give $250 to my event? I'll give $250 to your event, right? And so this exists among the affluent people in the United States. So when the United States has wealth, and all that wealth exists at the top, that top percent of the people who have lots of money, that's what they're doing. And so that comes down to places that can establish themselves enough to have credibility in that community, in the eyes of the philanthropy community that they see. And then also there are foundations, so there's private foundations that are set up that are more formalized, but they're completely independent, and they lead the charge sometimes. Like there's one called the MacArthur Foundation, and it's here in Chicago, and they have a whole staff of people who are evaluating the cultural scene. And then if they fund something, it's an identification that, that is a worthy organization to fund, right? And then individuals sometimes it gives them confidence when that organization comes and says, we're getting money from the MacArthur Foundation, but we still need money from you, right? And then there's this dynamic of individuals and foundations, but there's a tradition. It's, I could best to say, anyway.
It's a civil movement.
Yeah, that's why you look at it and go, how the hell do you get someone to do that, right?
But you have to go to different foundation or different individual to ask, okay, I need some money from you or something.
I'm doing that all until that's happening kind of. It's called cultivating the donor. You're making them have, and it's actually what you're doing is you're cultivating their relationship to the organization. It's a sincere thing. They really value what we're doing, and they value us as the people who are doing it. And so, because as we say, people give money to people. So they give money because they have faith in me and in Sandy, like as leaders of the organization. You know, and this is really key. It's not like they're just some sort of rich person who's just throwing out money without thinking about it. They're actually looking to express what is important to them
Yeah.
by supporting it.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the Medici's, you know, in Italy, right?
Mhm.
You know, it was just the patron system, which is it's a different version, but it's kind of the same thing, right? I mean, kind of the same thing. I say all these things knowing it's being recorded. I hope I'm not putting myself into a hot water sometime. You said, I saw a videotape that came out of Macau. You said,
Is that
we're like the Medici's. We're not like the Medici's.
Yeah. Would it be too dark? We want to switch on.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
for Blair's face.
You need more light? Should I turn some light on?
Or you want that what?
We actually don't have a whole lot of light in this room, unfortunately.
OK 啊，好好啊。
我驚佢係咁望我，因為佢會側晒頭。
Yeah, try this.
佢會唔會望住我會冇晒樣？
唔會。
So you must be running around the city all years in order to find those things.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of that.
And do you have to put them like reports or something?
Yeah.
Paperwork, something like that.
Report to them.
The individuals know.
No,
The
okay.
foundation organizations,
Yeah.
you have to do all this stuff where you have to just prove this and say you're doing that. And the people who are at the top of our list, it's just,
Okay.
here's the check.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to ask you talk about the like the lady is the board of director. How do you like form this board of director in the beginning? Because this festival should be 10 years right now.
Yeah.
So how does it form at the beginning?
So the festival grew out of my company that was called Blair, Thomas and Company. And I started that in 2002. And that was the structure I created so that I could make my own puppet shows. And so that's what I was doing. I was just making puppet shows. But I was also getting foundation money, getting some individual support money, a very small amount. I didn't have like being just a solo artist who's making work only has a certain level of appeal. Like it's a very different. The civic event that the festival is has a very broad interest for a lot of people who want to support it. And then so when I started the festival in 2015, it was just a project in my company that we were doing. And then I was like, we should try to do it every 2 years. And then we did in 2017, and it was bigger. And then it became clear by 2019 that it eclipsed my little puppet company activities. And so I stopped making work. I said, I'm going to stop making work, and I'm going to focus my energies on making the festival.
Really?
Because the festival has potential to really be work. Making work on my own was desperate. I hardly had any money at all. I could hardly support myself. You know, you get older. My wife and I had 2 children. It was just, you know, sometimes I had no paycheck. I would go for months without any money. It was just like, this is the state of most puppeteers in the United States. That it's dismal, right?
Everywhere.
Yeah. So right, and so that but I looked at it around and I thought, you know, I need a job. And I was like, if there was a Chicago International Puppet Theater Festival, I would be a good candidate to be the director.
Very confident. Yeah. Good for you.
I bet you I could get that job. And so I started the festival and you know, I switched over to focusing only on the festival. And then I also chose to rename the structural organization, which in terms of like the funding history of the organization, the way just its governmental relationship. All I did was just file a form that changed the name. That's all I had to do, right? And so in terms of its trajectory, that we didn't go bankrupt, that we pay our all the things that we need to do, all this kind of stuff. We're in compliance with all these things. So when the festival started, it didn't, by the time that fully happened, people were already, they were supporting me, and then they were supporting this festival idea I had, and so then it was just a transition to being, this is what's happening, and people were on board. So I wasn't starting from ground zero at all. Like, I've been working in Chicago since 1985, and so if anyone connects the word puppet to Chicago, they know me, right? And so I've just been here too long, right? And I also know a lot of the people who are running institutions and the people who are funding things. They're all familiar with me. In the 90s, I had another company that was when I was there for the first 10 years with it. It was called Red Moon Theater. I started that theater, and then I left it. And after I left it in the hands of some very capable directors and artists, and it grew to the size of it was a very big organization. Everyone knew this company, the work they performed, work in the streets and in theaters and around the world. It was a very successful company, and so I benefited by the fact that my friends continued the success of the idea that I really started, but they really, and so that was also kind of a reputational thing that helped me when I was starting to do the festival, right? It's just like, if you just took me up the road and put me in Milwaukee, I would be like nowhere, right? Right? But here in Chicago, I actually have some place to go. Like, I can pick up the phone and somebody will talk to me. They'll take my call, right? So it's just community, right?
So when you
Anyway.
try to formulate the festival, kind of make it more formal,
Yeah. So
you search for the board of directors, like
board of directors. So
Yeah,
your
yeah.
question, right? So my first company had a board of directors.
Yeah.
So there was, since 2002, there was a board of directors, right? And those people were people who knew me, and who were either they were arts administrators, or they were individuals in the community they're just professional people. Like, who is that original board? It's interesting. Like, they were mostly arts administrators and a few people in the community who I just know. And they weren't donating much money at all. Like, for most of the time, they would donate maybe $500 a year, that was significant starting off, for sure.
Yeah.
But compared to the boards now, it's just a very different thing. And so as the festival grew, then we attracted a different level of board member, one who is not working. They have money, for a variety of reasons. Say again?
Like sleeping partner, something like that. Sleeping partners.
Like what?
Sleeping partner.
Sleeping partner. Oh, no, they're not, I don't think they're like a sleeping partner. So a board of directors in the non-for-profit world structure in the United States means, so the structure is based on a corporate for-profit structure. And in that structure, if you're on the board at Amazon, you are making money if you're on the board.
Yeah.
If you're on the board at the University of Chicago, which is a not-for-profit, you are donating money, right? And so you're giving money to the institution. So it's a philanthropy by its nature. So everyone understands that they're here to support, but they're also here to guide and to help decisions. And in truth, they are the authority of the organization. So they can fire me. They can fire anyone on the staff. Well, they can fire the upper level staff, is what they can do. So they control the organization. And if I behave, or if I make choices that they don't want, then they could vote me out, right? But whatever. Just to show the dynamic. I don't have a fear that it's going to happen, but just to say that's how it's structured.
Yeah.
So, but my goal is to institutionalize the idea of the festival. So I would never institutionalize Blair Thomas and Company. That doesn't make sense. It's just me, right? But this is not just me. So even like many years ago, I've been moving forward. Like, how can I make it be something that's not dependent on me? How can this be something that will have that the city of Chicago will want it to exist. The board of directors will be people who want it to continue, who are dedicated to it as a cultural asset of the city, right? And like the art museum, the Art Institute of Chicago is a non-for-profit, just like we are, right? But they are much bigger and older, etc., right? So, that's so right now we are drawing people on the board who are supporting the mission of the festival. That's why they're there. they're down with that. And so one way the most active thing that we do in the year is we have these 2 events that we call the Living Room Tour. And that's where we take a performance, a small performance, and we take it to someone's living room, someone who has a house that's kind of big, right? And it's like a salon performance, right? And that performance, and then we also serve a dinner. And then we charge a ticket for $150, right? And so people come, like 20, 30, 40 people, depending on how big the living room is. And they see a show, and the show's like 20, 25 minutes long. And they're this far away from the show, right? Because it's like, and then and the living room tour turns out to be a very successful event. And it's a fundraiser, but it doesn't raise a lot of money in the world of fundraisers. We do 2 of them each year. We raise about $25,000 in the course of them, but they cost us around $8,000 to $12,000. So that means we're really only raising $10,000 or $12,000, right? Which is, for a $1.8 million operation, that's not a lot of money. But the goodwill it establishes for the intimate experience, the direct contact with artists, and the intimacy of the organization is invaluable. So when it identifies, if someone can pay $150, maybe $300 because they brought a friend, that's someone who has some money that they're probably people who are going to support the arts, right? So then so that's the first level of identifying people who can support us more. And then so that's a place where we're looking for, okay, who here can give us $500? Who can give us $1,000? Who can do more than $1,000, right? And so we start to understand that, and we start to then we make requests. Sometimes we just send out a mailing, and we mail something requesting it. And then sometimes we get more specific. We can find, there's a database where you can see this person donated this much money last year to these organizations, because it's public. When you make a donation to it, it's the government support. It's put onto a tax form, and then there's an organization that gets all that information and puts it out there so you can know who's donating, and because it's a thing that for a variety of different reasons, mostly people want to be identified with what their donations, right? But anyway, so we can go, I've never heard of this person, but look what they're doing at these other organizations that are just like our organization. We should have lunch with them and just talk about a project we're doing, right? We have this idea, there's this show anywhere, it's got this Ice Marionette, it's super cool. We need $100,000. What can you do, right? Right? And they go, I don't know. What is that? Tell me more about the show, right? And so that's the kind of conversation that ensues, and obviously it's more nuanced than that, the way in which it's done. But or there's a thing like there's a donor who's interested in a project, and then they're able to make. this much for it, and we say, can you contribute $10,000? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And I said, do you have any friend who could also contribute some money, right? And they're like, and then they do, and then they make the introduction to somebody. My friend can do $5,000. I'm like, that's great, right? And so it's just slowly building all these things together. They're all relational, right? They're all like meeting this person, talking to that person. So during the year, the living room tours, these events where people can come and kind of have this experience with the organization. They can see a puppet show. Hopefully, it's good. And then so this is a constant thing that we're doing, right? And then the key thing is to get them to see the festival thing. A lot of people come to the festival and they're just like gobsmacked. They're like, oh, I've never seen anything like this. Like that was amazing. They go from you guys to Plexus Blair, which are just like it's just they're like their heads spin. They're like, I can't believe this is all the same thing. Right? And I'm just like, yeah, this is what puppetry is. It's got this diversity of form. It's got diversity of ideas. It's got
bold taste.
Yeah.
And you really have a very bold taste.
Yeah. Well, the audience, there's in a festival in Chicago, I have a great latitude with. I need to have a show that's really funny and ridiculous, like Gilwood. His show, it's just nothing but ridiculous. But
Which one?
it's from I Killed the Monster.
Oh, I
We
want
didn't
to
see
see that one.
But you talked to him. You saw him yesterday. So it's so funny, that show. It's just, but you just have a good time in it, right? And your show is just like, wow, like people are like, holy Toledo, I know nothing about Macau, and now I know something about Macau, and it's like, and that's such a different type of puppetry. And then Dracula is like it's like a horror movie nightmare in front of you, right? It's just like, this a very advanced, Monraku form, right? And so that's what's going on in our community. That's what's going on in the diversity of puppeteers who are out there making stuff. Like, it's really interesting. And so,
Because like the research we are doing is about the relationship of different festivals around the world with their community, and
This
I
is
think of
definitely
wait,
very
say that one more
different
time.
community.
It's about what?
it's about the Purple Festival and their community.
Oh,
And for us,
okay.
like reading this,
It is
the
definitely
community
the
is-
first community that I ever encountered.
it's like more like we got money from, for example, in the Europe style or in the Asian time. Yeah, as a Purple Festival, we got some support from the government, for example, and then we curate some different performance. We invite artists, and or we produce our own performance, and I offer to the audience, to the community. Right, this is the relationship flow.
Yeah.
But I think this is
This
different.
is vice versa.
Yeah, the flow is
community
different. The supporting.
offer the
So-
possibility of the festival, and then the festival give it back to the community.
Yeah. I think there's a similar kind. Well, I'm not sure if it's different, really. The value is the same, which is that the work is there for the audience.
Yeah,
Yes,
right.
yes.
The values.
Yeah.
But the empowerment comes
Yes.
from the community.
It's different.
It's very different, because
But what is that empowerment?
it's because this community also include those donator, right? Because they're not government, they don't have the responsibility to support cultural scene, right?
Right.
So the community differs in different places, the meaning of community. So I would say if like yours, it's a huge amount of money. It's not like
Right.
2,000 out of 3,000.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a lot, and this is a huge power from the community that okay, we can make these things happen. We
Right.
don't wait for the government to give this cultural rights to us.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is something
The
very
motivation is different also.
very powerful.
They earn the power to see. I want to see some puppetry here.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Either in the winter, like minus, I don't know, 20 degrees, and they come out to see a puppet show.
Yeah.
Because on one way because I support that and I pay for that
Yeah.
and I love it. And then this is already different. It's not because Blair Thomas. Blair Thomas wants to make a puppet festival here.
Yeah.
It's because the people
It can
wants
be.
the puppet festival here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a seed. But this seed grow because the community give the water and some, and they trust it. They
Yeah,
trust
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this.
On the way, it's not. I would describe as for example Korea, what we saw is someone with very established status in art or puppetry. They offer the community that we have a puppet festival, we have a puppet theater here,
Mhm.
and then we create puppet, and then we invite you to come to perform here and whatever.
Right.
But here, I will feel the power is around the whole community more than just being as an audience.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I just think of the power of Christy, our chair of the board of directors. How 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 empowered she feels that she is making it happen.
Yeah.
Like, she is a
For
major
sure.
contributor.
Yes.
Right. She did the catapult. She signed up to travel with the catapult people and have that full immersion this weekend. Which is like she's down.
This
with it.
weekend or next weekend?
This weekend. She was already did it. Right? So, yeah. So she was traveling with all those other people, just kind of finding out where they're like.
Yes. So
It's
she also
very-
saw the performances.
Oh yeah, yeah. She saw saw 3 days of shows. She's so it's extraordinary that that we have someone like her, like us. Like, I mean, there's a couple people that are extraordinary like that are different reasons. It's like it's really fortunate because before my festival time, I had no one like that. I had no person who had that kind of. It was just like, can someone give me some water? Just like,
I know that.
it's just like, but this is like, but it's for the event. But the thing is, we had over 19,000 people came to the festival last year
As an audience.
as an audience.
19,000.
19,000. I have to put some water on real quick for some tea.
Okay. Hey,